Hi everyone, this is Tanya from Flying Dog Studio. Thank you so much for joining me as I do a little project with my Winsor Newton watercolor pencils. You may or may not have seen me do some projects with these in the past. Here they are. It's got the name on the side there. I will link everything down below where I swatch these, where I've done other projects. I just did a loose painting, kind of an intuitive type painting with these right before this video. It came out last week if you're watching this as it is coming out, and I used the colors in that I'm going to use in this. I kind of wanted to see how they all work together, so it was kind of like a little test project. So let me have a little coffee here, and then we're going to take a look at the colors I picked out from those sets for the piece that we're going to do today. And here are all the sets. Some of the colors were duplicated. I used some from everything. So I have butter yellow, just plain yellow, raw sienna, soft peach, apricot, burnt orange, caramel, cocoa, terracotta, burnt carmine, shale. There are a lot of them here. China blue, one of my favorite colors. My second favorite on here is turquoise. Absolutely love that one. Midnight blue. These work so well together. You're going to see that. Plum. Then we have olive green, just a few more colors. This is Ice Gray 3. Now, the top of it makes you think it's blue, but it's actually kind of a cool gray. It's kind of a blue gray. We have Steel Gray, Cool Gray 4, and finally Warm Gray 5. And we will use all of these pencils. You see, I already have some out there to use. I have a cup of water, and then I have some brushes. These are the ones I normally use. I'm pulling out a couple. I'll have another one in a few minutes. This is the size 6 round from the Winsor Newton Cotman series. And then I have a size 8 round from the Royal and Langnickel Zen series. And I'm just going to get this prepped a little bit. I use a kneaded eraser to kind of knock the lines back. They look like goose eggs, but they're actually rocks, and that's what we're going to be doing in this piece. So I'm starting out with the turquoise here, and I'm not going to put all of these colors on there. I have them all at the beginning. I'll try to mention them as I go along. What I'm wanting to do is get a good base for everything. So instead of doing a wash on everything, I'm going to go ahead and kind of do a little wash in each area and put the base color down for everything. What I'm seeing is the lightest color underneath. That's what I want to put down, and then we're going to come back and build colors up. So I'm using the butter yellow on that, and I have the turquoise here. Those are two of the colors that I have. And then you're going to see me bring up a brown. We're going to start with the rocks themselves, and then we're going to work in the background. So you can see I have the brown going there. I'm not sure which brown that is. If it turns around here, I'll let you know. It kind of looks like shell. I have midnight blue and warm gray, number 5. And I wanted to show you these because these, along with burnt carmine, are the ones I'm going to use for the shadows. And when you look at the reference photo on this, I will link that down below. I got that from Unsplash. I only used a small portion of it. I'm going to go ahead and link that where you can see the entire piece, but you'll see that between the rocks it looks black. None of these sets had a black watercolor pencil. I have found through my years of using Prismacolor colored pencils that if you mix indigo blue and a red together, like a really dark red, that they are going to give you a very nice dark color, not black, very dark. And if you come back on top with like a warm gray, which is what we have here, a warm gray 5, and you kind of have to alternate these back and forth. Okay, let me tell you this before we go on. This is the size 3 round from that Cotman series on Winsor & Newton. That's what I'm going to use to paint these small areas. But when you come back with these colors, you can see how they are giving you a nice dark in there, and it makes it a more interesting dark color than just using black, because underneath is dirt and little pieces of gravel. We can't see those. Those are underneath. Those aren't black. They're going to be browns and grays, but by doing it like this, you can get a nice dark color. And I'm going to layer on top of this again. I always err on the side of light and not dark, so I err on the side of caution. And you can see I'm coming back, adding those again on top. Things are dry. Make sure they're dry before you add more colors on top. But the rocks are too light. All the dark colors are too light. There's the midnight blue I'm putting on there again. All of the colors are too light. I want a little more built up before we start adding in all of the final colors to be activating. So as I activate these, that very center is almost completely black. So let's start with the rocks. And again, I am putting the same colors down just so that I can have that darker base before we start with those final colors. I can't say that enough. You wouldn't normally have to put down 2 layers like this. I just didn't get it dark enough the first time, so I'm going to come back and make it a little darker. Now you'll notice this is a little bit edited in here. I've skipped around just a bit. That's so you don't have to watch the entire 2.5 hours it took me to do this entire piece. I worked for a little bit, then I quit. This is kind of difficult for me. If you have arthritis, you can see I'm wearing my arthritis glove there. And if you have arthritis and you're holding a pencil a long time, it does get kind of hard to set and hold on to things like that. And here comes the warm gray. Warm gray, and I want to show you some of these colors up front. Like I said, I've edited quite a bit. I want to show you some of the colors that are super important. This is what I'm using underneath. Now it's on top of the color, the base color. I've let everything dry and I'm adding that warm gray number 5. That's my shadow color. I'm going to come back and activate that on each one of these. I let it dry, and then I'm going to start adding my final colors on top. And as I finish these rocks, we're going to go one at a time. I'm going to color the rock, like a couple of rocks, do a few at a time, and then I'm going to activate them, and then I'm going to go to the next set. And because I didn't want you to have to set through the entire thing, I'm going to show you in some areas it'll be an extended part of the video so you can see exactly how I color it or exactly how I activate it and blend it without just mixing all the colors together. And the rest of the video is going to be little short clips together just so you can see me skipping around with the colors using the same colors that I showed you up front. I haven't added any more. I know sometimes I'm really bad about that, but I haven't added any more colors. These are the colors that I showed you at the very beginning. And on some of these, you can probably stop and actually see what color I'm using. That is midnight blue right there. You can see that on your screen. This is on top of that warm gray number 5 that I already have down. And the reason I put good bases down below, number 1, to hold my light spots on these so I don't have to try to add the light spots in. And number 2, so I can kind of have a roadmap of where I'm going. I don't like to work on a white piece of paper. It kind of breaks that up for me and it gives me a roadmap. I'm doing something on here that if you were doing just regular colored pencils, you would call this burnishing, because I'm adding some pressure. And you can probably tell the way the screen is shaking just a little bit because, it's really getting in there coloring. I'm adding multiple layers going back and forth with these pencils, and I'm burnishing. So every time I add another layer, especially this turquoise, I'm really applying some pressure. I don't want there to be a lot of white left. Now, I have chosen the Winsor Newton brush here because it doesn't hold a tremendous amount of water and it's not huge. It's going to let me work in one small area at a time. Notice I'm not just going back and forth. I'm actually moving in sort of a circular motion. This particular rock had sort of a mottled look to it. It wasn't completely smooth. The colors were splotchy. And in order to translate that over to paper, I have all of the spots added on there with color. Now I'm coming back and activating and moving in sort of a circular motion. And now you're getting to the short clips where I'm doing that all the way through. I'm not working in any particular order. I'm not going lights to darks or darks to lights. But what I am doing, I'm making certain that when I switch from one area to another, you're going to see me in some of these clips. I'll rinse my brush, I'll tap that microfiber cloth right there, and then I'll go back and paint on top. Now this particular rock, you're going to see a longer clips of this because it's not all blues that we just had, the blues and the turquoise. You're going to see yellows and browns and reds and turquoise in this rock. So I'm going to kind of be careful with it. We've got the peach going on here right now. This is the burnt carmine. That's the one I added into those dark areas. You can see now that those dark areas are dry, they are super dark, almost black between those rocks. I'm going to come back at the end and add a little bit more of that warm gray and get an even darker area in between. So now let's do the water on here again. I'm just working in different areas. I still have water in my brush, but as I'm going to a different color, I will tap that rag and then I'll come back. I still have enough water in my brush. I don't have to get more. I just have to get the color off of the tip of the brush. Because if you've never worked with like Winsor Newton watercolor pencils or any watercolor pencils or Derwent ink tints, once you tap that with a wet brush, that color's on the tip of your brush. So if your brush holds a lot of water, you don't have to keep rinsing it. You just need to wipe the tip of it off to get that color off and then go back in and start activating other colors. And that's what I'm doing here. Just a little bit of blending. And you can see I'm just blending, just being very light. I didn't want a really big brush, so I choose the Winsor & Newton's smaller round brushes. This one is a size 3. I used a size 6 on the one before this. And you'll see me using, when I'm doing the more detailed work, I will use the Winsor & Newton because they don't hold quite as much water. And again, this is one of those areas that I've slowed it down because I want you to be able to see me blend all of these things together. And you'll see me doing this in other areas. The rock right in the center is very similar to this one with the amount of colors and the blending on it. And I wanted to talk through these so you could watch me do the others and see the same process down there. And again, I am adding more pressure in this one, this area, just like I did with the first rock that I did there, because I want a lot of color. I wanted this to be super saturated. So I'm going to be quiet for just a little bit. I'm going to hop back on again and talk to you some more when we get to another area that's coming up. But until then, I'll let you have a musical interlude and I'll hop back on again in a minute. This particular little rock had some challenging areas on it. You see, we are going down into a darker area at this point, and the rock kind of fades down into that dark background. However, when you activate these colors, they're going to end up looking a little juxtaposition. So what I'm doing is I'm very quickly coming in and activating all of these colors. And then I'm going to start from the top, from the lightest area in this dark, and come down and kind of push those down. And For me, it's easier to start with the paper upside down, and you can see I'm pushing it down into the darkest area, and that's going to give us more of a gradient with that shadow. It's going to allow me to push it down into the shadows. There it goes. And give it a nice blended effect so that those colors are not juxtaposition. Some colors we want juxtaposition, like the little rock up at the top that had all the little multicolors on it, and the way this one will be. But other rocks, we want them to kind of blend together. So that's a technique you can use not just on rocks, but on other things where you kind of want it to blend in from a light to a dark area. Always start in the light area, activate everything, then start in that light area and then push it down into the dark. We are coming to the last three rocks on here. And this rock was another one of those at the very beginning that I gave it that China blue and some of the turquoise. But the rocks that had those blue colors in them were all a little bit different. So I just came on top of this one with some of that very cool gray that I showed you at the beginning that looks blue, but it's actually gray. And I gave it another wash of that on top, which I didn't actually wash it. I just went all the way across with it, and now I'm adding the colors on top. And that's going to change the turquoise and the blues that I'm adding on top, and that's going to change it so it'll be different from all the other blue rocks on there and turquoise rocks once we add the water and activate those colors. Most of them have the same kind of pattern. They were just a little more light or a little darker, maybe a little more turquoise, maybe a little more blue in it. So you're going to see a variance in all of these blue rocks, but these were my favorite rocks, and that's why I zoomed in on this part. And you're going to be surprised when you see the massive amount of rocks in this picture, but that's why I zoomed in on this part, because it had some really interesting rocks and I loved the blues. Now, one thing I didn't do on this, like I said, because it was so long, is include all of my colors. Let me know in the comments, would you like for me to make longer videos that are multiple parts? I really don't think anyone wants to sit. I wouldn't. I would actually pass by a video that's an hour long, even though I might want to know the techniques. That, or I would just like zip through it with, you know, the fast forward button until I get to the parts I wanted. Or would you rather have a video like this? Let me know. You know, I'm kind of tossing around. I don't really know exactly what would be more beneficial for you guys, so you'll just have to let me know on that. This is one little area, that rock in the center. You saw me put some green on there. I forgot to add that in, so I thought, well, I have to add it in on these rocks, so I'll just add it in on that one at the end. So that's why I went back and touched that one up, just so you don't have any confusion on that. So a little more here, and then we're going to fix, well, not fix, but add a little darker area into the rocks in between. All right, we are at the final part in this piece, and that is the warm gray number 5. Like I promised, going back between the rocks. Now, I'm not going to activate this. This is going to be the final piece in our rock puzzle. This is going to add the dark that we need, and I'm not going to activate it so it will stay that dark. When you activate it, you always lift up a little bit of color, and on this, we're just going to leave it as is. So thank you so much. If you have made it to the end of the video, kudos to you. If you are new here, thank you for joining us. I hope you'll subscribe and take a look at what I do on the channel. If you hop on often, thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate you guys. If you could comment below and let me know again, do you want the long format and multiple sections, multiple videos? Do you want just a condensed version like this? Let me know what works for you guys. I just want to help you out. I have some more stuff coming up like this and some of my journals. I hope you'll join me for those things. But until then, my friends, I will see you in the next one.